with y'all today. And thank you for coming out in this weather. I got up this morning and I thought, well, there's either going to be a lot of people or it's going to be me and Elizabeth, and that's it. So, I really am grateful to all of you for coming and for being here with us. Kat, I saved you a seat right here in front of me. Here you go. Yeah, come on in. We do have a few seats up front if y'all want to come up here, if you don't want to be in the back. Seriously, all you guys back there. So I'm really happy to be here. I just spoke recently at the Vell Institute a couple of weeks ago, and so don't worry, I have something different planned. So I'm going to try to keep you entertained. And I love to be able to speak to groups of people like this because I have had a lot of experiences and I've made a lot of mistakes and I've had to bounce back from a lot of challenges. And so my hope and my prayer as I prepared for this today is just that there is somebody in the room, and maybe more than one person, that I will be able to encourage today, that you will walk away having a little more faith in yourself and faith in the processes that we all go through just in life. And that when we make bad choices, we can bounce back from those. So really, it's kind of what Elizabeth said. The point of Inspired Leaders is telling the story of how you got from point A to point Z. So last July, Andy and Elizabeth have a podcast that they do, and I'm sure a lot of you have listened to it. And they really gave me a wonderful gift. They invited me to be on the podcast with them. And we ended up, the interview that they did, so with the podcast, it's really more she and Andy asking questions, and we're going to kind of go over what we talked about during the podcast. But the gift that they gave me was, our interview was an hour and a half, so buckle up, we're going to be here a while. No, I'm just kidding. No, so really the gift that they gave me is when I got the finished podcast and I went back and I listened to it, I called her and I said, if nobody ever listens to this was a huge gift to me because it helped me see how all the puzzle pieces of my life actually fit together. And how when I thought that life was over and that things were done for me and I was going to have to go back to teaching, please God no, that he always had a plan and that it always worked out. And so in the last year or so, when I've hit challenges, I have gone back and I've listened to that podcast and I've listened to myself talk to myself and seeing the whole big picture of life and how things really do always work out the way that they're supposed to work out. And when we get pushed out of the nest, sometimes when we think we're not ready, we actually are. We just don't realize it. So I'm just going to kind of tell y'all really how I started out. I graduated, I was born in a manger. No, I'm just kidding. I graduated with, can you see the halo? No. I graduated with a teaching degree, elementary ed, and y'all, I really don't know why I became a teacher. It was just kind of, I don't know, I went to school and that was what I did. I was great with kids. I've always loved kids. I don't have children of my own. I told somebody this morning, I think I love kids because I don't have any of my own. But, I've always been great with kids, and so I got this elementary ed degree. I started out teaching first grade, and I actually replaced the first year that I taught. I did my student teaching in first grade, but the first year, the job I got was in fourth grade as a fourth grade teacher, and I actually replaced my fourth grade teacher at the elementary school that I went to when I was in the fourth grade. She left me I'll never forget the first day I walked in and she had left me a little card saying, I never dreamed when I was teaching you all these years ago that you would be my replacement when I retired, So I taught for 6 years. I did fourth grade for 2 years. I taught first grade for 4 years. And I loved the kids. I always enjoyed that part of it, but I hated the limitations of teaching that I had. So Bill is a former teacher as well. Yeah. So it was the limitations that I had. Number one, I couldn't go to the bathroom when I needed to go to the bathroom. Number two, I couldn't take, the struggle is real for teachers. You do not understand. Yeah. And, I couldn't take vacations. And it's the little things, David, I am telling you. So, I couldn't take vacations. For me to go on a doctor's appointment was like getting something to pass in the House of Congress. It was everything. And then the big thing was just the financial limitations. Teachers just don't get paid. We all know that. And you were always limited. And I was a great teacher, and I was a go the extra mile and then go another mile kind of teacher, but I always had a limit that I could make just based on the years of experience that I had, and that was it. And that limitation really drove me crazy. And so after 6 years, I was actually having some health challenges. I had gotten the flu the last year that I taught. and I was 27. I had gotten the flu, and in the middle of the school year in January, and it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I go to the doctor. I actually ended up having to leave school early that day because I was just so sick, and I had no idea what was going on. And I go to the doctor, and she says, you have the flu, you have a sinus infection, you have walking pneumonia, blah, 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 blah. So I'm home for 2 weeks. I'm in a fever. I'm in and out of the hospital. So for 2 weeks, I'm not able, I can't even stand, And I get a call from I was in a private school at this time. I was teaching in a private school in Dallas, and I get a call from the headmistress of the school, and she says, Stacy, you've been out for 2 weeks. And I said, yeah. And she goes, when do you think you're going to come back? And I said, you know what? I think it's going to be at least another couple of weeks. Like, I am still really, really sick. And she said, well, your sick days have run out, and starting on Monday, you're going to have to start paying for your own substitute. Well, I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know how it works now. I have no idea, thank God. But what... Is that what happens? Yeah. Okay. So you have to pay for your own sub. And at that point, the school that I was in, the substitutes made more per day than the teachers made in a day. So I was actually going to be, so y'all see where this is going, So I ended up forcing myself to come back to school because I was young and I'm trying to pay the rent and, pay the bills and all those kinds of things. And so I go back to school, and I ended up really compromising my health, and it has affected me for the rest of my life. I mean, what happened because I came back too soon, and then about 2 years later, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and it just has been, which is just an autoimmune disease, and it's just something that I have had to deal with on a daily basis, like me staying upright, functional, and keeping pain management under control is it's something I deal with every single day. So I have a lot more good days than I do bad days, but there's just a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort and a lot of just fighting to stay on my feet all the time. And it's been that way, because I went back too early to teaching. So I finished up the school year that year and just thought I've got to do something different, but I didn't know what. And then there's just that fear factor, right, of what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm a teacher, and what am I going to do? So I ended up going back in the fall, which was a huge mistake. And about 6 weeks into school, I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. So I was continuing to I was really getting sicker and sicker and sicker. That was the thing. I was losing weight. My hair was falling out. I mean, just the stress and everything was just awful. And so the church that I went to in Dallas, they had an opening for children's minister, and I applied for the job, and they interviewed people from all over the country. I was the first person they interviewed. I was the last person they interviewed, and they ended up offering me the job. And it was, talk about a godsend. So I ended up leaving the school before even the first semester was over, and went into children's ministry. Again, I kind of had in my mind, like, I'm good with kids, and this is what I'm good at, and this is all I'm ever going to be good at, and so this is what I'm going to do. And I really did enjoy the children's ministry part of things. But there were still limitations, that were there. But I was enjoying what I was doing. I knew I was never going to get rich doing it. I wasn't going to make a lot of money, obviously. But there was a lot of fulfillment that came with it. At the time, I was married to my first husband, ex-husband, and was in a very stressful situation there. Things were really bad. He was later diagnosed as a narcissistic sociopath. So if that just gives you a little idea, my life at home was kind of like a bad Lifetime movie as far as mental abuse and all kinds of stuff like that. But then I would go to church, and I had my world there. So I lived two very, very different lives, two very separate lives. And what ended up happening is my husband had an affair with somebody we went to church with. And because shop where you eat. So what happened is, unfortunately, it's just the way that things worked out, and it was the way that the leadership of the church decided to handle it, is they fired me because he had an affair. Because they came to me and said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I can't stay with somebody who's been unfaithful to me. And I'm not saying anything against the church. This is just the way that things happen. It's just the way that life happened. And people are people, and people make decisions. And that was a very uncomfortable situation for everybody involved. And so anyway, I lost my job. And so literally, y'all, in one day, this was kind of how things happen. I get up and I go to work. and I'm sick. I'm very sick, and I'm just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I had kind of gone part-time with my job. I had cashed in on my Texas teacher retirement because I was going through some treatments, and they were very expensive. And so I'd cashed in my Texas teacher retirement. I had deposited that in the bank the day before. I was driving to work, and just getting out of bed and just going anywhere at that point was really difficult. Go, Kat, where you need to go. Go ahead. And just getting to work was difficult. Just getting up and getting dressed and getting out the door was hard. And I'm on my way to work, and I get a phone call, and I'll never forget, and it's the guy at the bank, and he says, he said, Stacy, of course, I know y'all find this surprising, but I knew everybody at the bank. So the guy at the bank calls me. I've always talked a lot and never been afraid to meet a stranger. So the guy at the bank called me, and he said, Stacy, he goes, there's a problem with your account. And I said, well, what do you mean, what's the problem with the account? And he said, you were $8,000 overdrawn. And I said, how is this possible? There's no way. And he goes, well, your husband came in and he took out all the money. And I had paid a bunch of bills, and so all the money was gone. And so then I called the church and said, I'm not going to be able to come in today. I go home and I start doing some homework, and I realize what's going on. I find out about the affair. I go to the leadership of my church, and they say, if this happens, you can't stay. And so literally, y'all, in one day, and my whole world was my church. That's where all my friends were. That's where I worked. That's where I did everything. And so literally in one day, I lost everything. I lost every friend I had. I lost my job. I lost my home. I lost my income. I lost whatever savings I had had. And I'm sick on top of it all. So I literally remember going home that night and just praying to God that he would just let me die. Because working to get past any of this, and if any of y'all have ever been at that point in your life, heaven just sounds really good instead of just plugging through. It's a lot harder to stay here on earth and keep working through your problems and to keep going and keep putting one foot in front of the other than to just let go. And so I had this choice, so I decided I was going to move, and I moved to Virginia. My parents live in Virginia, and I moved up here. And at this point, just because of the stress of everything, of course, my health just completely cratered. And I ended up being completely bedridden for 3 months. And the doctors at this point are still trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And they can't figure it out. I went into multi-system failure. My kidneys started shutting down. My liver shut down. Everything, all my organs were shutting down one at a time. And I finally get in with the specialist, and he says, you're in multi-system failure. You have a fungal infection that has gotten into your bloodstream, and it has caused all of your organs to shut down. And the only way at this point, it has so infiltrated your entire system, the only way that we can stop it is we're going to have to put you on a treatment that's very much like an oral chemotherapy, where we're going to have to give you this medicine that is toxic, and it's going to kill everything in your body, and then you just got to start all over. So that was my only chance, and they gave me a 50% chance of living, of making it through, because by this time my immune system was just so completely compromised. So I went through 2 rounds of that and had to live pretty much in total isolation. I really couldn't be around people because of, I couldn't be around the germs and, all of that kind of stuff. And so, here I am. I was 30 years old, and here I am. Life has not gone the way I had planned at all. And if any of y'all have ever sat down and started looking back on your life and going, how did I get here? Like, how did that happen? And, my relationship had ended. Nobody in my family had ever been divorced. I was the first one, so there was a lot of labels. There were a lot of my family, my parents, my dad is a preacher. They were having a very difficult time with me being divorced. I actually ended up having to move out of the house from living with them because they were not happy about the divorce, and so I ended up going and living with my best friend. So I really didn't have the support of family. I was living in a city where I really didn't know anybody. I hadn't been there since I was in high school, hadn't kept in touch with anybody. I had no money, and I was sick on top of it all. And so this is, it's one of those times where you lean on the Lord. That's it. I mean, that's all you have, is you lean on God and you lean on your faith that somehow things are going to get better. And so I just went through this process, and I really, in a way, I look back and I know I really gave up. I just kind of decided it doesn't do any good to make a plan because things don't work out. And I just became very cynical in my head, and I just said, I'm not going to plan anymore. I'm done. I'm just, whatever happens, happens, and I'm done. And I just really kind of just gave up on that I was going to have any kind of a life, that I was going to be able to contribute in any way. At this point, the doctors are telling me you may or may not live, and we're not sure how functional you're going to be when it's all over with. And the medicine was affecting my liver and, just all of these different kinds of things. And so I went through the treatments, and I was out taking a walk one day. The doctor told me to get out, get some fresh air, this kind of thing. And I got out, I took a walk, and I went by this little strip center that was kind of in the neighborhood, kind of like a little market street, that was close to where my mom and dad lived, and they had a help wanted sign in there. And there's just this little boutique that was in the help wanted sign was in the store, in the window of this little boutique, and they had some cute clothes in there and cute shoes and jewelry, and no matter how sick I was or depressed, I still loved to shop. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go in there and look at pretty things. I can't buy anything, but I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to look at it. And so I walked in, and the manager, I will never forget, her name is Patty Gray. Patty is 6 feet tall, flat foot, and she came and she met me at the door. She has these beautiful green eyes, and she looked at me, she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I just want to come in and look around." I said, "I don't know anybody in town, and I said, I haven't been out in a while. This is the first time I've been sick, and I just haven't been out, and I just want to look around." And so we just started chit-chatting, and I said, "I see you have a help wanted sign in the window." And she goes, "Yeah." And she said, "Have you ever thought about working somewhere like here?" And I said, "No, not really." And she goes, "I think you would be great at this. I can tell you've got an eye for color, you like, what you like, this kind of thing." And so I said, "Well, I don't really know if I can, but I'll think about it. I'll think about it, So I go back and I think about it that day, and y'all, that day, her just saying, "I think you would be good at something," I needed to hear that. And so I just want to encourage you that when you see somebody, I said I was going to cry today, but Brenda, I see you crying. You're making me cry. When you see somebody who is struggling, Jeff, I can't look at you either because you cry too. When you see someone who is struggling, you never know, and sometimes we don't know that they're struggling, but just be as kind as you can to anybody you see, because you never know who needs to hear words of encouragement. You just don't know. And Patty did not know me from Adam. But for her to say to me, "I think you would be good at this," it changed my life. And it gave me the will to do something. So I'm going to take a drink and I'm going to quit crying, I promise. So I've never talked about this stuff before, ever, publicly. Okay, it gets better, I promise.
It sure does.
So it does. Happy ending, I promise. Yeah. So do you have tissues?
She does.
Good job. Who had tissues? Julie Peters, the grandmother. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Cassandra Mays, Salt Remedy. Yes. So I went home, I thought about it. I called Patty the next day and I said, "I've been really sick. I really don't know how much I can do." She goes, "Come in, we'll work with you. It doesn't matter." I don't know why. This was just God's favor upon me. That was it. So I said, "Okay, I will give it a try." So I went in my first day that I was there. It was a women's boutique. If you think of something, kind of like would be in Market Street, one of those stores there, privately owned. And Patty just took me under her wing. She had a business degree. The owner of the store, she had a business and merchandising degree. They both took me under their wings, and they just taught me the business of sales. My very first day that I was in there, I'll never forget, this lady came in the store, and she said, "I'm going on a trip to Scotland with my husband." He was in oil and gas. "I'm going on a trip with my husband to Scotland. We're going to be gone 2 weeks, and we're going to be with all these oil execs, and I've got to look really, really good." And I said, "Okay, I can help you." And I just started pulling clothes, and I started giving her stuff. And she went in the dressing room, and everything looked great. And she walked out with $2,000 worth of clothes about an hour and a half later. And the owner came up to me, and she goes, "That's a really good clothes." And I go, "Was it? Did I didn't know, I was like, "I don't know. These clothes are," I shop in Walmart and Ross at this point, so I don't even know what, So anyway, she goes, "That was a great sale." She goes, "Most days we do about $1,500 a day. You've just done our day and then some." She goes, "I'm going to give you $1 an hour raise." So on my first day of work, I got a $1 an hour raise. Okay? And y'all know this, it wasn't even about the money at this point. It was just about me feeling productive and human again, like I was contributing to society. And so I found this great satisfaction. I mean, I found I had a great need for sales. And I am so thankful. I mean, I joke about my teaching career and everything, but I am so thankful for it because, and we talked about this a lot on the podcast, there are so many things that I learned as a first grade teacher. There are so many skills that I was able to translate into other things. And so one of those things was sales. Because most of the time when you're selling, you're really educating people on a product so that they want to purchase it. So I became extremely, extremely good in sales. I didn't know it, but I had a head for business. And eventually, I started taking over the management of the store. Patty, my little 6-foot angel, she went out and started her own business, and I ended up taking her place. And I found out I really wasn't as bad at math as I thought I was. I really was pretty good at numbers, and I was good at marketing. And opportunities started coming to me. The shopping center that we were in wanted to have a big fashion show and use all of the stores. We had a big fur store, and we had a shoe store and a jewelry store, and everybody wanted to come together and have a fashion show, and I ended up running all of that. And I just found out all of these gifts and talents that I didn't know I had, and one of them, I was just great at making people look good. Number one, I knew what would make them look good. I was also great at coordinating people and putting events together, and I was good at sales. And I didn't know any of this, from when I had graduated in college. I had no idea that I had all of these gifts and talents that I could put to use. And the other thing is when I was helping people look good, I was making them feel good about themselves. And to me, that was huge. I just loved being able to do that. So I continued in that. I stayed in retail for about 10 years. And I met my husband a few years after I'd started in retail. I'd been divorced about 4 years before I met Greg. And we got married, and we ended up relocating. We bounced around, quite a bit. We went to different places with his job. And then we eventually landed here in the Woodlands. And so for a while, I had this idea that I wanted to have an image. Let me back up a little bit. One of my friends in Richmond that I went to church with, we were sitting and talking one day, and she said, Stacy, you would be a great image consultant. And I said, what is that exactly? And she goes, she said, she just moved from Washington, D.C. She goes, well, an image consultant is somebody who works with people. You help them dress, you help them put together their outfits, different things like that. She goes, you could do that. You could do it on a personal basis. You could do your fashion shows and all kinds of stuff. And so she just really planted this seed in my head. And again, it was just somebody saying to me, you would be really good at something, And so, like I said, she planted the seed in my head. And then Greg and I got married not too long after that. And like I said, we got transferred like 3-4 times within just a couple of years after we had gotten married. I had to have major surgery. My health definitely improved, but about 6 months before we moved, my appendix ruptured. And I had to have big surgery. It ended up being a lot bigger than we had expected. And so I was still kind of in recovery mode. So for about 2 years, I didn't really work a whole lot. I would do some little part-time sales gigs at different places that we landed, but we always kind of knew wherever we were only going to be there 6 months. So when we finally got here to the Woodlands and I started seeing the community that we were in and everything, I went, this is the perfect spot for me to do my image consulting business. So I got a job at a boutique at Market Street, and I worked there as a buyer in sales for about 6 months. And while I was there, there was a couple who came in to the store. Their name was Randy and Lisa Otts, and I wish I had thought to invite them today, and I just didn't even think about it. But Randy and Lisa Otts, they were my next pair of angels that came into my life. So they came into the boutique one day shopping for Lisa. And we got to talking. They had a travel consulting company. And the lady that I was working for at the boutique at Market Street, she was crazy with a capital C. And she was driving me crazy too. But I needed the income coming in. I didn't quite have the money yet to start my own business, but I still had this idea in my mind that was what I wanted to do. And Randy and Lisa came in one day and they said, hey, are you happy here? And I said, no, I am miserable. This woman is stark raving mad. And they were like, yeah, we've noticed. And come and work for us, And I go, okay, what would I do? And they said, sales. We have a travel consulting business. We do group sales. We need somebody to do outside sales for us. You would be perfect. You can talk to anybody, just come in and do sales. We'll train you. They worked out of their house. So, I shared a desk with Randy. His desk was here, my desk was here. We were in the place, and Randy was a master and still is. He is an amazing networker. He is a visionary. He is a big picture person. He is a marketing genius. And he just really, we would go to lunches together. And then Lisa had a corporate background, HR, corporate background, he did. And every day we would go and have lunch together, and we would talk, and they knew that I wanted to start my own business. And one day we just sat down and had lunch, and Randy said, so, when are you starting your business? And I said, well, I need this and I need that. And he was like, all you really need is a website and business cards. And that's it, and you need to network. That's really all you need to do. And I was like, do you really think so? And he goes, yeah. He goes, Stacy, you can do this. You can do this. I mean, again, there are those words. You would be good at this. You could do this. And Lisa, whose specialty was team building and, like I said, HR and that kind of thing, she's like, Stacy, you can do this. Read this book. Read this John Maxwell book. Read this. Read this. So they gave me all these resources. And so I finally, with their encouragement, I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. So I ended up, my very first website, what I built myself. I went under Yahoo Small Business. I built my first website. I made my own business cards. I literally had $100 in my business bank account, and that was it when I started out. All I had was this dream, this vision of what it could be, and I could talk to people. I could network. I could build relationships with people, and that was really all I had, and so that was what I started doing. So I was working about 20 hours a week for them. And then I kind of started out 20 hours a week for me. And then as time went on over that year that I worked for them, by the end of that first year, I was working about 40 hours a week for me. I was picking up new clients, individual clients. I was getting hired to fashion shows and things like that. And I had gone to Market Street. I went back to the property manager at Market Street, and I had asked for a meeting with her, and she was gracious enough to give it to me. We'd really only met one time when I still worked at Market Street. And she was gracious enough to sit down and give me the meeting. And I had asked her, could we have a fashion show at Market Street? I'd use all of the clothes from all the stores here, and we could have it out in the Central Park. And, and she said, you know what, our year is already planned out. We can't do it this year, but I like the way you're thinking. And I like that you had the courage to come and talk to me. And she said, we had a conversation, and he told me about Network in Action, NIA. And I ended up getting involved with NIA, talking to the owner of Network in Action, and he just said to me, you know all these people in the Woodlands, why don't you just start? My idea had been I would start networking down in Houston. I was going to become a part of an NIA down there. I was going to get to know people in Houston and build up my corporate business down there by becoming a part of networking groups down there. And then the more I found out about NIA, the more intrigued I was, and I ended up buying my first franchise in July of 2016. So I actually started 2 groups at one time, and that was 3 years ago. And it's one of those things that I as I look back, as I listen to that podcast I was talking about at the beginning, I can see how every step of the way, everything I went through, being a first grade teacher and learning how to deal with all these personalities, and then going through the devastation that I went through, because it's made me a very compassionate person. Going through all of that, and then becoming a children's minister and learning how to be an administrator and be over people, and then being in sales, and all of these things that I'd done in the past, they had just prepared me to be able to step into Network in Action, which is my calling, which has been my purpose in life. So people ask me, why have you been successful with Network in Action? It's because I absolutely love what I do. My favorite thing to do is to connect people, to build relationships with people and help them build their businesses. So we've been very fortunate with Network in Action. I started my 5th franchise just in March. We had our first meeting with that group in March of this year. We were named Franchise of the Year. We had a heck of a year last year in February 2018. My husband fell with a grave illness. He's still recovering from that. And even despite all of that, we were still able with Network in Action to be able to be Franchise of the Year and to really build our business up. And to be able to start the 5th franchise was just a huge accomplishment personally for me this year. So, I just really tell you all of these stories to let you know that it's like Elizabeth said, when we see somebody, when they're in the magazines or on the stage or getting recognized for awards and things like that, we're seeing the end product. We're not seeing what built the person, what was behind it. So I really want to encourage you, if you're just starting out in business, or you're in the middle of business, or you're getting towards the end of business, whatever it is, wherever you are, just to walk away with a few seeds of, have faith in God first, have faith in yourself, trust the process, and it always works out. Thank you.